All right. I think everyone can see my screen, right?
Yes.
All right. So thanks for the everyone for coming for the session today. So today I'm gonna talk about a little bit of very timely topic, which is very important for any organization nowadays. It is cloud migrations. And today I'm going to give you an idea about how and what are the essential things that you need to understand before you migrate anything and everything from on-premises to the cloud. So as you already know that this is my profile, just to briefly give you an idea, I'm Dilip Rajapaksha and I work for RIPE, Singapore. So I'm working as a solution architect, and I'm also MVP and Microsoft certified trainer and also certified solution architect. So if you have anything that's you need to follow up with me, you can go to Twitter at DS Rajapaksha and go to LinkedIn and search for this link, or maybe you can search for my name and you can connect with me directly. So just to give you a small brief of my company. So I think you might have an idea about the company a little bit from the video. So the RIPE is actually a cloud first, channel first company. So we actually, our main focus is to bring anything and everything from softwares and solutions and the subscriptions so to the clients and the partners. And basically, our vision is to, a world without shelfware. And our mission is to provide best platform enablement and 24/7 service, so that customer will also can consume and deliver value from their customer investment. And you can go to ripe.com if you have any thing to know. So Ripe is actually, as I said, cloud first, channel first. Cloud first is we are actually distributing cloud related products such as Azure. And then we actually bringing a channel for our partners to get some businesses and bring some businesses and earn money. And so our base focus is in Asia Pacific. And as I say, this is subscription software focus. And we have more than 2,500 partner ecosystem around the country, around the world in Asia Pacific. And also we have a good consulting and 24 and 7 support as a service. And also, as I said, our aim, to drive ongoing growth of consumption of software subscriptions, such as Azure and some other subscriptions. So just to get an idea about the goals of this session. So as I said earlier, the primary goal of this session is to get an idea about migration and how you are going to step into migrations and what are the considerations that you need to take a look when it's come to migrations. And so there are a lot of approaches available when it's come to migrations out there. So mostly and the most popular approaches like rehosting, refactoring, and re-architecturing, and also rebuilding. And so from one of this approach, which approach that you are going to use in order to step into the cloud. And then there are a lot of tools available in order to help up with you with the cloud migration from on-premises to cloud. And if you have any projects that are running on on-premises, how we are going to move that to the cloud without any hassle. And then, of course, at the end, I'm going to give you some migration, post-migration success stories. So to give you an idea about how you can optimize and secure your entire infrastructure. All right. So before we get started, let me give you an idea what is the journey of cloud. So if you're familiar with the cloud technologies and the cloud, so you might remember how the cloud actually begins. So before the cloud actually came into the picture, so people and the businesses needs to actually create their own on-premises infrastructure in order to run their businesses. For an example, let's say that in 90s and early days, if you want to start a business like a e-commerce, so what you had to do, you had to buy on-premises hardware. for an example, servers and internet connections. And basically, you need to build your own infrastructure inside your on-premises, location. So basically, a server environment in a data center. And when you are coming to the cloud little by little, so we started with the infrastructure as a service. So where we actually look into this space. And then we have a lot of container services, and we have platform as a service offering, serverless, and then we have software as a service offerings available in the cloud. So there are a lot of services available in the cloud. So those are called actually service models. So infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and then software as a service. So when you are coming from on-premises environment, so we need to know how and which approach that we need to migrate to the cloud, and why we are actually moving to the cloud. So the easiest and the far most easiest and the most applicable approach for a lot of organization is going with the migrate, what you call as rehost. So basically, you bring your entire infrastructure from on-premises, and you are lifting from this infrastructure and shifting it to the cloud. So this is little popular among a lot of all the days of very matured companies, right? And who has their own data center. And other than that, this is application modernization part, and this is migration part. So when it's come to application modernization, if you have very old application and you don't directly need to lift that application from on-premises to on-premises to cloud using infrastructure as a service, so lift and shift approach. So if you don't need to do that, what you can do, you need to take a look at one of these approaches like application modernization. So application modernization has a lot of other different ways of doing that. So one is refactoring, re-architecturing, and rebuilding. So depending on your underlying infrastructure or the architecture, so this is going to be different. So today we are going to look at what are the differences and how we are going to approach the migration strategy. And other than that, not to mention, you already aware of software as a service, services available, and we're going to see how we can actually replace any of the application that you have in on-premises with software as a service application. So that is pretty much of the cloud journey. So you are coming from on-premises, and now we are in the cloud. And how we are moving to the cloud is basically based on migrate or maybe application modernization. So I'm gonna quickly jump over to why you should migrate to the cloud. So there are a lot of reasons, right? So this might be early days of your data center. Let's say that you are starting the business and you on an e-commerce website and you created this kind of data center. It's cool, right? So it's messy, you can see. So now what we are going to do from here, we are going to migrate to the cloud, and you need to understand what are the drawbacks of your data center inside the on-premises environment. All right. So the basically, when it's come to the drawbacks of your data center, so the most important part is actually the cost and money, right? So if you have own infrastructure, if you have your own physical infrastructure, it actually requires a lot of capital in expenditure. As I said earlier, in early days, so you need to buy servers, buy other hardware equipments in order to create your own data center. And then what will happen? You need to put a lot of money, thousands of hundreds of dollars, in order to buy server hardware and set up your own data center. And then the other thing, when you are actually scaling, right? So the business is actually scaling every year. What will happen? You need to update your hardware, right? But the problem is actually when you have your own data center, it is really hard because the space might be limited, your money might be limited. So there is scalability. So other than cost, it is scalability. And also when it's come to other requirements like compliance, so which is very important nowadays. It's about your the data that your users are actually saving inside your application. So when it's come to compliance, in order to get compliance certifications and everything, you have to pay a lot of money. So basically it is going to be very expensive, and it's going to be very expensive requirement. And other than that, there are a lot of reasons why we actually move into the cloud, such as a scalability, as we discussed, and then security concerns, and likewise there are a lot. But the majority of companies, if you look at 90% of the companies in the world, and why they are moving to the cloud is the reason why, because of the two reasons. The first one is actually the cash flow or the money, and the second one is the scalability. And when you are moving to the cloud, there are a lot of benefits when you are hosting it on Azure. So you don't have any hardware to manage, because Microsoft is actually managing it for you. You don't need to worry about purchasing hardware and maintaining your hardware. If there's anything wrong, how you are going to maintain. You don't need to worry about any of them. And then everything is up to date. All the data centers are up to date with the latest hardware, as well as latest operating systems and everything else. And also the cost is very flexible, because you are going to pay as you go. So you are not going anything upfront, and you don't actually have any capital expenditure. So that means you will pay only for monthly basis and pay as you go basis. And then it is going to be, the business is actually going to be based on operational expenses without capital expenses. And other than that, the creating an application and deploying it to the cloud is very faster. So if you wonder, a lot of startups nowadays are very fastly growing and making a lot of money, and a lot of SaaS based entrepreneurs out there, they are making a lot of money and they are getting rich, because the reason why that, because the faster time to go to the cloud and bringing that to the customer. So that's one of the important part when it's come to the cloud. And also you can keep your cute server names, right? So you can give it the names as you want, right? So VM1, VM2, or whatever the names, right? So just a funny question, right? So obviously, if you look at to the cloud, right, when you are going to the cloud, so basically when you are moving to the cloud, the most important part is actually you can actually focus on your business as well as application. So you don't need to worry about maintaining hardware operations, IT operations inside your organization. You can give a lot of focus into the application development as well as business. So that is the entire idea when it's come to moving to the cloud. So when you are moving to the cloud, someone might think this is actually a technical decision, right? So, but the idea here, this is not really technical, right? So the idea here, when you are moving to the cloud, so the decision is made by your underlying, financials, institutions, and your financial, team, right, in your organization. So that is basically actually related to the business. The core idea of moving to the cloud is business related. And ultimately that when we actually move to the cloud, we have two questions to ask. So what is driving your business to migrate to the cloud? So what actually reason that you are moving to the cloud, and why it is going to happen now, right? Those are the two questions you need to ask. So remember that some of the businesses, some of the applications are not really need to migrate to the cloud, right? So it depends on these two questions. So why you are going to move to the cloud now, and what is actually driving your business to migrate to the cloud. So that could be different reasons, underlying maintenance cost, and if you look at your data center is actually outdating, something like that. There might be a lot of answers for the first question. And when you are actually moving to the cloud, there are a lot of other core business considerations. As I said earlier, so what we can do, we can achieve operational efficiency by reducing operating expenses, because you are just pay as you go, and you don't have any servers to maintain, right? So your labor cost is going to be a little down, because you don't need to hire a lot of administrators. And other than that, you don't have a lot of other hassles like patching softwares and getting licensing and everything, right? And the time to the market is going to be very reduced, because you can very quickly create an application and deploy it to the cloud, then bring that to your users. And also the support for the cost effectiveness and scalability requirement, right? And also, as I said earlier, renewal of your data center hardware or maybe renewal of your licenses is really easy. And other than that, other business content like development and modernization of your application and other things like software end of support. For an example, let's say that you have an application running on Windows Server 2008. So when it is coming to the end of the software, software end of support, what we have to do, you have to actually migrate to the cloud, or maybe you have to upgrade the license or upgrade the operating system. So those are the key considerations when it's come to migrating to the cloud. All right, so now you have an idea why you should actually migrate to the cloud. So I think pretty much what I discussed is actually related to the business requirements, right? So as I said, it's very important that your organization is making a lot of money and profit. So that is one of the most important things that organizations are moving to the cloud. So now we are going to look at how we are going to do that and what are the approaches. So when you actually look at cloud migrations, there are a lot of strategies available. So the strategies are going to be depends on your team, right? So and also your background. So the first strategy, first factor would be like, what is the most pressing needs that you need in your organization or in your application team, and what are the core skills that your team has. And other than that, where our applications and the development life cycle is. So those are some of the factors that are going to depend. So depending on your background of your on your team and your organization, so the approach might be different. So there are about 5 categories of migration strategies. So if you look at this diagram, you can get an idea. So when you have something like a rehost, right, in the first one here, so you are moving it entire infrastructure from on-premises to the cloud. It is related to infrastructure as a service. So what you are doing, whatever the virtual machines running inside your current environment, you are moving it to the cloud directly using lift and shift approach. So also known as rehost. And then other than that, if you have applications running inside your own data center, in your on-premises data center, and you need to move to the cloud, and that is going to be a platform as a service. You are going to decide that you are going to move it to the platform as a service of it. And then you need to either consider refactoring or re-architecturing or rebuilding your application. And if you want to replace entire application with a software as a service solution, you need to actually replace entire thing with available software as a service solution. So we'll discuss one by one. And when you're actually rehosting, as I said earlier, so you are not doing anything, you are not changing anything, right, from the on-premises environment. So what you're actually doing, you are migrating your physical servers or maybe virtual machines to the cloud, just as they are. So the idea here you can see in this diagram. So the virtualization and hardware is given by the cloud provider. So Microsoft is providing you virtual machines, and they are taking care of virtualization and hardware. So what we do, we are actually bringing application platform and everything like application data, code, runtime, and then application configurations as it is, and bringing it to the cloud. We just actually rehosting entire infrastructure. So that can be done in 2 different ways. Either if it is a virtual machine running on VHD format in Hyper-V, what you can do, you can actually detach that VHD file with the entire application running inside that VHD. So we are going to remove that from on-premises and then plug that VHD into the cloud. So that is one approach. And the other than that, what we can do, whatever the application running in the on-premises environment, you are going to rehost using one of the approaches inside the cloud. But you are going to use the operating system and underlying operating system to run that application in the cloud using a virtual machine. So basically there's nothing gonna change when you are doing rehost, and which is very quickly and which is very easy to do. And this is very popular among a lot of matured organizations and very old organization who has thousands of millions of virtual machines running in their infrastructure. And then when they are actually moving to the cloud, they are considering about rehosting. And refactoring is another way of doing it. And remember that rehosting is infrastructure as a service based. And when you are going to refactoring, it is software as platform as a service based. So in this strategy, actually, we have some additional things to do. So basically, if you look at this diagram, so the underlying operating system, application platform, and virtualization and hardware is provided by Microsoft. So what we are going to do, we are going to create app service, right? So basically, if you go and search for Azure app services, so you are going to create an app service plan and app service here, and you are doing application configuration. It could be any kind of application. It is running on C# or ASP.NET or whatever, PHP. And then what you are doing, you are actually updating some configurations and then code as well, right? And then if there's any upgrades that you want to do some refactoring for the application, you do it and update it, and then you are going to bring that to the cloud and host it in the cloud. So here you have some workload to do depending on your application and how old it is. And when you are doing re-architecturing, which is very time consuming because you need to change the architecture entirely. So not like in refactoring. So in re-architecturing, sometimes you need to change the architecture a little bit. So for an example, you have monolithic application, which is running in one virtual machine, and the entire application code in the same virtual machine running inside the same application. And now you want to host it in the cloud in a platform as a service, but you need to make sure that application needs to run and re-architectures using microservices architecture. And then what you have to do, you have to modularize, or you have to go with a modular approach and modularize each and every component in the same application and change it and re-architect it in order to run it in the cloud. So in that case, what you have to do, either if you have application running inside on premises and then it is entirely written, and you have to change a little bit, because at least you have to bring that to Docker containers or Docker images that you are going to run as a microservices. And maybe you might consider about having something like a serverless approach. So because of that, this is going to be a little time consuming than the refactoring. And what you do, you actually change everything in the code and runtime and the application configuration. And this part entirely managed by the customer, right? And the platform as a service offering here, operating system, virtualization hardware is managed by the Microsoft. And here also you can either consider about moving to platform as a service offerings like app services, maybe Kubernetes services and Azure Container Services, AKAs, and or maybe serverless like functions, Azure Functions, and you are modularing all the parts in the architecture. And when you are going to rebuild, so basically you are going to rebuild entire application from the scratch, and you are going to move it to adopt the cloud native pattern. So in that case, so you are going to change everything, and this is entirely consuming a lot of time. And what will happen, you are building it from the ground and transforming your application to in order to support cloud native environment, and then you are going to bring that to the cloud. And the next approach, as I said, replace. So this is where software as a service comes in. So what you are doing, if there's an old application running in your environment, say for an example, there's a CRM application that is running on your on-premises environment, and it is custom made and developed by your internal team, and now it is outdated and it doesn't have much features, and it is really laggy, and then now you want to migrate to the cloud. What you are going to do, you might consider replacement other than refactoring or re-architecturing or maybe rehosting. So this is going to be completely a change to your entire user base as well as the cost. So there's nothing to manage in terms of cost and everything. So what you are doing, you are actually finding solution. For the example that I have given, the CRM or ERP system that running inside your on-premises environment, and now you want a replacement. So you can go for Microsoft Dynamics or maybe anything else, any ERP or CRM system available in the cloud as a software as a service subscription. So what you do, you actually subscribe for particular software as a service application for number of users, maybe number of tenants, something like that, and you are subscribing it and you are paying monthly for that. And there's nothing to worry about, nothing to change, and everything is up to date. The code is done by Microsoft and the provider, right? And the application configurations, entire thing is actually managed by whatever the company that you are getting the software as a service solution from. And what you have to do, you have to transform your applications and data as you want. So there's nothing actually to do in terms of underlying part. So that is also one considerations. Some of the times, some of the organizations are considering about replacement, complete replacement for the entire application, and it depends on your underlying capabilities and the background of your organization. So before we go to the migration, we need to understand what are the 4 steps of migrations. So no matter what are the strategies, you need to make sure that your cloud adoption, right? The migration to the cloud is very easy and it is going to be success. So before migrating to the cloud, we have to do these processes, right? So the first one you need to do is access, right? So you need to assess your environment and make sure that environment is migratable to the cloud, and it is possible to migrate and feasible to migrate to the cloud. And then once you've done the assessment, you have to migrate it to the cloud. And what you can do, you have to use one of the free tools available or maybe paid tools available. And then you are going to migrate that entire thing to the cloud while by actually minimizing the downtime. So the assessment is really important when it's come to any environment, because the assessment is giving you an idea whether it is possible to migrate or not. And then after migration done, so you have to actually optimize. So what you can do, you can optimize your environment in cloud by looking at the underlying usage patterns, underlying cost considerations, and the performance and everything else, right? And you can understand whether your on-premises infrastructure that you brought inside to the cloud is actually optimized and it is utilized the most. And then other than that, you need to make sure that you making sure that the security is the first thing, because in order to manage your entire infrastructure, and also other than that, fine tune the management of your cloud environment. So those things are most important when it's come to the cloud migration. So when you are migrating, there are a couple of things in order to discuss. So one of the things is actually what are the replacement from your on-premises to the cloud. So for an example, you need to consider about what is the connectivity, what is the networking, what is the storage, and what are the identity elements that you are going to mimic or use or replace when you are going to the cloud. So when you are in the on-premises environment, so you may have switches, you may have networking, and then other than that, you may have hardware equipments in the on-premises environment. So you need to consider how you are going to use the same kind of architecture in the cloud, and what are the replacement that are available in the cloud. And by establishing actually, virtual data centers in the cloud, so what you are going to do, that you will continue support to your business after the migration without any kind of surprises like downtimes and lags and everything. So the first things first, the identity is really important in order to securely ensure secure access to your entire infrastructure in the cloud. So whatever it is running, and then you need to make sure that there are no malicious attacks, and how you are going to control those malicious attacks. So And then other than that, you need to make sure that you have built-in identity solutions like Azure Active Directory, and how you can manage your users using Azure Active Directory, and then how your users are going to log into the cloud environment and do the management. And cloud-based management is actually very important, because when it's come to the management between a lot of people inside the organization, and bringing a good user experience to the end users. And other than that, the storage is there, the consideration. And when you are moving to the cloud, you need to make sure what are the storage capabilities available in the cloud. So when you are in an on-premises environment, you can use NAS SAN based system, but in the cloud, you are using virtual storage. So in the cloud, there are a lot of storage options available. For an example, in Azure, we have blob storage, table storage, queue storage. Likewise, there are a lot of storages available. Depending on your requirement, we can suggest which storage that you are going to use in the cloud. And many storage types like our uh, blob storage, storage accounts, they have a lot of capabilities like reliable performance, geographical redundancy, zonal redundancy, and disaster recovery, something like that. So those are very important, that when you're actually having good resiliency among your application. And other than that, the next very important part is networking. So networking is very important when it comes to data center. That is how your entire data center applications and everything is connected to your users. And you need to consider how you are going to move to the cloud, and when you are moving to the cloud, how you are going to create that entire similar kind of data center, virtual network inside the cloud. For an example, which subnet that you are going to put this machine, which virtual network that you are going to put this machine, which kind of subnet that is going to be, what are the IP addresses, those are needs to be very considerably designed. And then when you are moving to the network, virtual networks, your physical boundary is actually going to be subnets, virtual networks, those are going to be in Azure. And then so the application can continually use network topology, whatever it is, right? So in the cloud. And then other than that, the connectivity is really important, right? So the application is now migrated. Let's say that your application is running on the cloud. How your end user is going to connect is the other important part. So is it via site-to-site VPN, or maybe point-to-site VPN, right? Or else is it just through the public internet using IP address, a public IP, or maybe domain name, domain name, right? So that is how you are going to design which kind of connectivity that you need when you are moving to the cloud. So if it is an organization who wants a VPN, and then you can decide which VPN that you are going to use. And there are some considerations when you are going to the cloud. So some might have heard about Microsoft has this something called Azure Express Route. So Azure Express Route is kind of a private networking capability which is available, and which is very expensive. But the most importantly, it has a lot of performance as well as security. So when you are moving a heavy lot of data to the cloud, you might have you might have to consider about how we are going to lift that data from the on-premises to the cloud. So one of the things that you need to consider, what channel that you are going to move it to the cloud. So that is not easy to move petabyte of data from on-premises environment to the cloud very quickly. So what we have to do, we have to consider about having a good connection, or maybe a channel, right? Just like Azure Express Route. So let's say that you want to move to the cloud from on-prem to Azure, and then you can purchase Express Route, which is private connection, which is just like a lease line. And then you are going to connect that private connection with your on-premises environment, and you are putting that data to the cloud and uploading that data to the cloud, petabytes of data. And then what you can do without any security concerns, with good security and lower latency, with low latency, and also very fast approach, you can move entire data center data to the cloud. So this is one of the good ways to do, but it depends on your organization's, storage and the storage capabilities and the capacity of your virtual machines or application and data. And the other than that, there's another very interesting part in Azure. So you may have heard about data box. So a data box is really a physical thing. So for an example, if you have petabytes of data, so if you are not capable of purchasing Express Route, which is really expensive, what you can do, you can actually get a data box, which is a hardware equipment, in order to upload entire infrastructure data from your on premises and ship it to the data center that you want. So just to give you an idea, these are the available options for data box. So in Azure, we have data box and data box disk and data box heavy, as well as data box gateway. So forget about this one. So these are the most important parts. So the data box is kind of a rugged device which has 100 terabytes of capacity to use. And then data box disk is just a SSD, which is around 8 terabytes, and it is USB SATA interface. And look at this, and every other option has AES 256-bit encryption, and some of them have around 128-bit encryption. And then other than that, if you have petabytes of data in order to move to the cloud, then there's another option called data box heavy, which is really big, and it is also ruggedized, and nothing gonna happen even a bomb is crashed, right? Nothing gonna happen even it's go to the deep of the sea, right? So what you do, you actually bring that something like this from the Azure data center. So, and what you are doing, you are ordering something like this, and then you are going to put that data and ship it back to the data center. And from the data center, they are going to extract that data and put that into the cloud environment without any problem. So most important part is everything is securely encrypted, and anyone in the data center cannot see anything inside the data, and it is secure. So only you can see, because you are getting the key from the Azure portal. So this is kind of a way that it is going to work, right? For an example, let's say this is your Azure data center, and from Azure data center that you want to move to the cloud. What you are doing, actually, you are going to the port and you are ordering some kind of ruggedized device, right? So what will happen? There are some process here. It's going to be, and you actually bring that ruggedized device, data box disk or data box, heavy. You bring that, and it is going to ship by the data center, and then you put that data and then ship back to the data center. And then what will happen, it is going to put that data to the Azure data center, and it is going to run as smoothly as you want. So that's how we can actually move that data if you don't have a channel. So now you might have the question answered. If you have the question, if there are petabytes of data, how we are going to move to the cloud? Very simple solution. Either use Express Route, or maybe you can use data box disk heavy or data box. And let's move to the assess part. So from the 4 steps that for the migration. So in order to begin the migration, as I said, you need to do and get an understanding how feasible your migration is to be success in the cloud. So basically, you need to consider about how many servers and how many virtual machines that you need in the cloud, and what are the virtual machine types, and what is the virtual machine series or virtual machine configurations that you need. So those things you need to understand before you migrate to the cloud, and you need to get an idea whether it will be succeeded or not. And assessment is divided up to a couple of steps. So what you do, you discover on-premises applications and servers, and then identify dependencies, analyze configurations, and also you plan for the cost. The most important part is actually analyzing the cost, because as I said earlier, other than all these 3 components, for a business, the most important part is this. Even though these 3 things are going to be success, the configurations and the technical specifications are going to be compatible with the cloud. If the cost is going to be higher than what is in the data center, definitely they are not going to move to the cloud. So that is very important. So discovering on-premises applications and servers is going to be a very simple task, right? So, but it is not that much easier without any tools available. So whether you have a hypervisor running virtual, Hyper-V, Microsoft Hyper-V in your data center, or maybe it could be VMware or vSphere. It doesn't matter what kind of virtual machines that is running. What you can do an assessment and then get an idea how much or what are the configurations, what are the usages, what are the usage patterns, applications that you can actually move to the cloud, and also the cost considerations. And when we are doing the assessment, as I said, you have to understand what are the server dependencies. So for an example, let's say one application is actually running in one virtual machine, another application is running on another virtual machine, and you need to make sure that you have two dependencies. Let's say the virtual machine one is depending on the other virtual machine, and that needs to be really important, because if we are moving virtual machine 2 and virtual machine 2 is dependent on virtual machine 1, and then if we move the virtual machine 2 at the beginning, and at the end we are going to move to the virtual machine 1 to the cloud, what will happen? So there's a dependency broken, right? So we need to make sure prioritizing all these machines, all these application dependencies, and how we are going to map into the cloud, and it is really important. So identifying these dependencies is really important, depending on your environment. And then you can analyze the configuration. So what configurations that you need to run on top of the cloud? It could be operating system configuration, it could be underlying hardware configurations. So depending on your configuration style, you have to analyze whether it is going to fit for the cloud or not. And then most importantly, the planning cost, right? So you need to understand which virtual machine type in cloud is going to match with virtual machine inside my on-premises environment, and how much is it going to be cost in cloud, and how much it is going to cost in on-prem environment. And you are going to do side-to-side comparison, which is cheaper. So sometimes it is going to be cheaper, sometimes it is going to be very expensive in the cloud, depending on your current situation in the on-premises environment. And other than that, you need to make sure, remember, when you are moving to the cloud, so whatever the applications, virtual machines that move to the cloud is actually at least 90% utilized, right? So in a on-premises environment, what will happen? So most of the times the virtual machines and everything, are actually over provisions, and most of the time they are underutilized. So less than 20% utilized, right? So the CPU RAM is going to be underutilized. But you need to make sure that whatever you are moving to the cloud should be overutilized, or maybe it's in the fit, right? And sometimes I have seen in my life, right, a lot of customers and partners, what they are doing, they are looking at the physical configurations of their on-premises server and map that exact same physical configurations to the VMs in Azure. So that is not going to work at all, right? So sometimes it is going to work, but sometimes it is not going to work. Some scenarios. So let's say, for an example, in your on-premises environment, you have a virtual machine with 2 cores and 4 GB RAM, and you are going to use the same kind of virtual machine with the 2 core and 2 cores and 4 GB RAM in the virtual machine in the Azure. So sometimes it is going to work, sometimes not, as I say. So it depends on the underlying utilization of the cloud application. So the scenario that I said, 2 cores and 4 GB RAM, if you look at that, if you actually analyze the data, so in the on-premises environment, how much of utilization that VM is actually getting, so you might be able to identify sometimes it is over provisions. Say for an example, the 2 cores are running, but each and every 2 cores are actually they utilize only average of 20%. But if you are doing the same in the cloud, right? So what will happen? You are wasting money. So in that case, you can consider of moving to something like a different kind of virtual machine series to make sure that you are giving the right fit for the machine that you have on premise. And talking about the tools, right? So when you are doing assessment, there are a lot of tools available. So I'll show you some demos, what tools are available for you to do assessment and do migration. So many tools are available, in Azure. So especially Azure Migrate is really important and really great tool that I have used a lot of times. And it could be, VMware, or it could be, your on-premises environment is VMware hypervisor, right? Or maybe physical servers. So depending on your, type of on-premises infrastructure. So you have to decide which tool that you are going to use. So assessment tools are actually doing kind of a assessment on your entire infrastructure and gather some data based on historical performance, right? So like CPU usage, memory usage, or maybe storage usage, and map them to the equivalent Azure virtual machines that is available. So it is giving you the technical and business reporting, right? So I'll show you a couple of screenshots how it is going to be shown at the end of the assessment. And so as I said, the tools for assessment, as I said, Azure Migrate, I'm going to show this in a couple of times, and then Azure Migration support. So Azure Migrate is a very best tool in Azure Portal, and then Azure Migration support is giving you, the partner support, right? So something like us from Ripe, what we do, we help you with, giving you with the migration support, right? And then other than that, if you are running anything in on-premises environment, like let's say Windows Server, and if you own software as a, software assurance subscriptions with software assurance licenses with the Windows Server, what you can do, you can use as a hybrid benefit, and where you can cut the cost of licensing when it's come to the cloud. So you actually pay less when you have, as a hybrid offering, and if you own your own licensing at the moment. And other than that, there are some other tools like Azure Data Migration Assistance and Application Migration Assistant. So I'll show you them in a little bit of time. And once you've done the assessment, you need to do migrate it to the cloud, right? In this step, actually, there are a lot of ways that you can move, data physically from your on-premises environment to the cloud. So as I said earlier, you need to make sure that whether you are doing rehosting, refactoring, or re-architecturing, or maybe rebuilding, or maybe replacing entire thing. So as I said, in many cases, organization will actually will start with lift and shift approach because it is easier and less time consuming. So as discussed earlier, lift and shift approach is really simple. What you do, you actually get entire thing from your own environment, on-premises environment, and then bringing it to the cloud, and then hosting it back again in the cloud. So mostly those are going to be virtual machines, and then most of the times these virtual machines are going to be replicated to the cloud in a real time. So just to give you an idea, right, how the real-time replication happens. So what you do, you actually get entire data from your on-premises data center. At the same time, you are getting these virtual machine images and hosting it in the cloud, right? And what you are doing until still the on-premises data center is running, but there's no disconnect between the to the end users. And once you actually migrate it to the cloud, you do a testing part, and then what you are doing, you are going to fail and disconnect whatever in the on-premises infrastructure. So that way you can reduce the downtime, and you can make sure that everything in the on-premises is up to date and sync with the cloud. And this is just like copying and pasting and keeping the same copy in the two sides. And once all this done, you are going to actually discard on-premises data center. So as I said, you need to make sure that everything actually works fine before we cut over, right, from the on-premises data center. So there are a lot of tools that are available, right? Just like Azure has, Azure site recovery. So we can use site recover, something like a site recovery, in order to do the test failover and do the test thing, and then check whether everything is working fine in the cloud, just like in the on-premises environment. So, for the migration, there are a lot of tools, as I said, as a site recovery. And then this is entirely for migrating physical servers from virtual machines from on-premises to the Azure. And then what will happen in a site recovery, you are actually supporting custom replications and isolated testing and final migration cutover. And then Azure data migration services. So if you are using databases in your on-premise environment, you can use data migration services in order to migrate and existing application database running on SQL Server, Oracle DB, or whatever. And after you finish the migration, you have to optimize. So optimization is really important in order to make sure that you are getting the correct performance as well as cost benefits. So as I said earlier, you need to make sure that you are getting the benefits of entire cloud and saving the money. So in order to optimize in Azure, we have a lot of tools available. So Azure cost management is really important when it's come to optimization of cost. So other than that, there's another component called Azure Advisor. So what you can do using Advisor, you can get advices based on your usage patterns, and in order to reduce the cost. So Azure Cost Management is really providing you insights of the current infrastructure running in the cloud, and giving you insights of what are running good and what are running bad. And you can, based on the data that is given, you can decide how you are going to take the next step. And after that, after migration is done, you need to make sure that your entire infrastructure is secured and managed. So in order to securely manage your entire infrastructure, there are a lot of tools available. So just like Azure Security Center and Azure Log Analytics, as well as Azure Monitor. And other than that, you might remember the first speaker talked about something called Azure Sentinel. So we can integrate Sentinel to this portion in order to make sure that you are actually doing a good secure and security management in your entire cloud infrastructure. So that's basically how it is going to be happen. So let me jump into the demo and show you the tools available. So let's quickly jump into my Azure portal. So if you go to Azure portal, you can search here for Azure Migrate. So first one, I'm going to show you Azure Migrate. This is Azure Migrate. All right. So if you go to Azure Migrate, so you can see here there are a couple of migration goals available. So if you are moving servers, you can go ahead with this. If you are moving databases, you can go ahead with this. It could be VDI images, it could be web applications, or maybe Databox. All right. So Databox, that's what I talked about earlier. And let's go with the servers, right? So if you go with servers, you can see at the moment I have created a migration service, right? So let me delete this and show you how easy it is to do it. Let me delete current migration.
Delay pa. I think the time is not enough.
Okay, all right. So I'll quickly run through it, right? Okay. I think I cannot be I cannot do a big demo, right? So basically, when you create something like something like this, right? Azure Migrate application, right? So Azure Migrate resource, what will happen? I'll just quickly go through. This is currently what I have. It is really simple to create. So what you do, you go inside this, and what you can do, you can click this one, right? If you want to do migration assessment, right, for your entire infrastructure, what you have to do, you have to click here, and then it will give you all the information. What are the tools available? So there are third-party tools are also available. These are third-party tools that are available. And what you can do, you can click here, you can click discover, you can download this file called as a virtual migration appliance, and you can this is kind of a virtual machine with the OVE file. You can install and run this virtual machine inside your data center, in your VMware or whatever the data center. So it depends on your hypervisor, right? So if it is Hyper-V, it is VHD file. So if it is not virtualized, you can download this and you run this and then do the assessment, right? Other than that, you can input the information from here, from your infrastructure by manually. And then what you can do, and after that done, you will get a report here. So I'll show you a screenshot of a report, right? So just to give you an idea, so this is giving you a number of virtual machines available, what are how many number of virtual machines profile, and which machines are compatible with the Azure and which are not compatible. And then other than that, the cost consideration, it is giving a big kind of big report at the end, and which virtual machines are going to be cost this much, and which machine that you can use in Azure. And yep, so other than that, if you go to database migrations, so there's this tool, you can download it from here. So something called data migration assistant. You can quickly create a migration project. So, and if it is a SQL database that target and SQL Server, and you can create a migration assessment very quickly. You can put your server name here if it is your local server, and you can connect, and then you can get the databases from your Azure SQL, and then you can add, and you can start assessment. So it will do an assessment and give you an idea whether it is possible to migrate that entire thing to the cloud or not. And once that is done, you can use migrations in order to do the migration part. And yeah, other than that, if you have web applications in order to migrate to the cloud, you can go to this website, app migrate, app service migration, and put that to your site. Let's say that I have this site running on another cloud platform, and I'm assessing. Right. So this is publicly available, and it is giving you whether this is possible to move to the cloud or not. So you can see your site framework and hosting model is fully supported for migration or app service. And if it is supported, you can go download, and you can download the migration assistant tool and do your application migration directly. And those are the support tools available. Other than that, you can go to Databox, right? And you can create and apply a Databox and do get delivered your Databox storage and migrate entire data to the cloud. And here you can see all the options available. You can go to Azure portal and create migration vault, and you can see every option is available in order to go to the cloud. So I think because we don't have much time, right? So I'm gonna quickly jump and finish off my session. So if you have any questions, if you need to learn a lot, you can go to Microsoft Docs, right, and get an idea about Azure Migrate. And there are nice documentation available. Even I learn a lot from my Azure Migrate documentation. And if you want to learn a little bit more information and get certifications, you can go to Microsoft Learn and learn everything about cloud. So that is pretty much what I have. And I think if you have any questions, it's time to ask. And if not, here's my connection information, right? Because we are running out of time. So you can follow me on Twitter. You can go to LinkedIn and give me a message. I'll help you with whatever the questions that you have. So any questions? Let me check if I can answer any questions quickly. It's my let me check. Okay, premature architecture. Okay, no question it seems. If you have any questions, let me know. So you have my connection information, right? So that's pretty much it. All right, over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Dilepa. So, think let's come to an end. Oh yeah, there's an announcement to make is that I think our global Azure bootcamp is coming back. So for those who are interested, can contact our speakers today also. Some of them are talking in the bootcamp. Yeah. So thanks for staying with us tonight or today, depends on where you are. Thanks Lilepa again. Thanks Priyanka and Engsun for giving us such a detailed talk. So yeah, for those who haven't tried Azure, please try it soon and hope you stay safe in this difficult period. Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks,
Timothy also.
Sean.
Thank you. See you
Thank
all again next
you.
time.
See you, everyone. Thank you, Dilba.
Thank you, Rimati. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Shin.